Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm Ashenafi, and my educational background is soil science, and currently I'm working for Benefit Realize Dutch-funded program, and I'm acting as a coordinator of uh, soil mapping across PSNP Wardas, and currently I'm also a member of the Coalition of the Willing Task Force. So today I am presenting, updates on one of the task force activities, which is mapping and collating of soils and agronomic data in Ethiopia. So this is the outline that I'm going to follow. I'll give you a brief background and the scope of the task force activities, followed by the approach and methods for we used to describe and characterize the national soil and agronomic data, and then follow. I will give you a brief description and interpretation about the national soil and agronomic data in terms of predefined attributes or features, and I will wind up with conclusion and recommendations. So to begin with the background information, as you know, the existing national soil and agronomic data are scattered in various organizations and available in diverse formats and difficult to access, not standardized and harmonized. So there is a need to facilitate data organization, management, access, and sharing mechanisms in Ethiopia, just to avoid management and analysis. As you know, the coalition of the willing established a task force, and the activities include to identify where major soils and agronomic data are located, at what form they are available, and to describe and characterize the existing data, and eventually to collect and reuse those data for further analysis. And as you can see, the activities of the task force have been conducted in a series of phases. And then the approach we followed were organizational visits, online resource access and review. And we formulated also a kind of standard metadata template to characterize the existing data. And we produced also official request data, to communicate institutions which are willing to share data, so that we provide official data request data, which is prepared by the Ministry of Agriculture. What we did was just for ease of description and synthesis, we just categorized the data in terms of into two, I can say, research and survey-based soil and agronomic data. So to characterize the existing data, this is a sample template we prepared. And as you can see, the template has object column titles. The column titles include the data object, and the data is also characterized in terms of the geospatial frame, in terms of hosting institutions, the publication types, the publication year, to characterize the institutions. And the data was also evaluated in terms of FAIR principles. And we have and sharing status, whether institutions are willing to share data, if they are willing, under what conditions, and if they are not, what were those reasons. So those kinds of attributes or features are employed to characterize the data. When we come to the data description part, just let me begin with the type of data holding or hosting institutions. As you know, the soils and agronomic data in Ethiopia originated or collected by various national and international institutions. For instance, significant survey-based soil and agronomic data are available at Ministry of Agriculture through ETOSIS project, at Ministry of Water, Irrigation and Energy, federal and regional waterworks enterprises, at Water, Land and Resource Center, regional soil testing laboratories, and at various programs and projects of the Ministry of Agriculture. And then when we look at, again, research-based soil and agronomic data, as you know, research-based soil and agronomic data, mainly crop response to input application data, are available at the national, I can say at the National Agricultural Research System, including at Ethiopia Institute of Agricultural Research, regional agricultural research institutes, higher learning institutes, and other development and research institutions, and also international research institutes such as the CGI group have been also collating or originating, voluminous soil and agronomic data. And then we have also evaluated the geospatial frame of the existing data. When I say geospatial frame, where the data is related, and we have checked whether the existing data are georeferenced or not. So about 72% of the existing research, the existing soil and agronomic data are sourced from research and development projects related to watershed, sub-basin, and plot-based studies. And about 28% of the data are sourced from basin and region and countrywide studies. And most of the survey-based soil and agronomic data are georeferenced, but georeferencing has limitation in some cases. For instance, systems are employed, the datums are not specified in most cases, so implying the exact location of the data is constrained. And indicated it in
Ashenafi, we're losing some of your words.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but we missed, I think, what you had said. I think this slide needs to be repeated.
Shall I continue now?
Yeah, if you start again with the results.
Okay, shall I repeat?
No, the next slide after this one.
This one?
People can see, so there is not much to repeat. Yeah.
Okay. It's better. Okay, let me start with the geospatial frame.
Yeah.
We have evaluated whether the existing data are georeferenced or not. And data are sourced from research and development projects related to watersheds, sub-basin, and plot-based studies, while 28% of the data are sourced from projects related to basin, region, and countrywide studies. And most of the survey-based soil and agronomic data are georeferenced, but georeferencing has limitation. For instance, when projected coordinate systems are employed, the data in most cases are not research-based soil and agronomic data are not georeferenced properly. And geographic locations, in most cases, the location indicates the coordinates of the entire location, or either it could be the research station or the Kabali or the wherever where the research is conducted. So it doesn't indicate the exact location or the plot under consideration. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, continue.
So we have evaluated also the status of published and unpublished information across data hosting institutions. And as you know, the National Research-Based Soil Agronomic Data mainly published as research and project reports, proceedings, journal articles, technical papers, and thesis dissertations, while most of survey-based soil and agronomic data published in the form of project reports. And in some cases, some similar data are found to be available in more than 2 publications. So this calls there is a need, to filter duplicated information or interrelated information. So, okay, when we collate data across from the data hosting institutions. And when we look at the temporal resolution of the published data, it varies from 1950s to, I can say, to date. And most data published between 2001 and 2019. In some cases, data acquisition versus publication year was not properly indicated in most publications. And most data officially published a few years after the research or the survey is conducted. This implies most up-to-date publications, probably do not contain, latest data. Again, we have also checked the status of significant unprocessed legacy survey-based soil and agronomy data are available. So this requires, again, a revelation, or we need to bring on board those unprocessed legacy data to the central system repository platform for further analysis and also to again, used to build, specifically, spatially explicit predictive soil and agronomy information in the form of maps and atlas are not published, along with the main publication. For instance, if you take the Ethiosis case, the map or the atlas is published, but the point datasets are not yet published or are not yet accessible to users. And when we look at research-based unpublished information, most research-based raw datasets are not available or accessible, neither as standalone publications nor as annex of main publications, okay? So this implies, again, research-based raw dataset documentation, access, and sharing within the national agricultural research system is very weak. This implies mother data highly vulnerable to permanent loss. So therefore, there is a need to timely publish raw data sets, along with the main publication. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Can hear you.
Across data hosting institutions, most of the data are available in analog format and if digital in standalone PC. So implying most of the existing data are in the hands of individuals. So it's quite vulnerable for permanent loss. And the analog data management in most of institutions is very, very poor. So most data just stored in analog formats, have been lost or left untraceable in most cases. And we have checked also data access, whether institutions are willing to share or not. So about 46% of institutions are willing to share data. So to Water Land Resource Center, Ministry of Water, Oromia Water Works Design and Supervision Enterprise, and SCG 2000, and some regional agricultural research institutes such as Orari and Sari are also willing to share data as per the institution's data sharing protocol. And then after we identify, willing institutions to share data, we just prepared official data request letters through the Ministry of Agriculture and provide to those institutions. So far, we have collated, voluminous soil and agronomic data from various data hosting institutions and in collating survey-based soil and agronomic data, I can say, but most research-based data from the National Agricultural Research System are not accessible, including the raw data sets. So this is also some of the collated data from the federal and regional soil testing laboratories. Just this is also as ongoing activity. This is again the type of data collated from Oromia Water Workers Design and Supervision Enterprise, mainly survey-based soil and agronomic data. So this is almost an ongoing activity, and I hope will progress well to collect the existing data and bring on board to the national or to the central database, which is under development at the Ministry of Agriculture and Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research. So just to give some kind of concluding and recommendation remarks based on our so far progress. As you know, just access to the existing soil and agronomic data set is very important, but as you know, there is no centralized digital soil and agronomy database at the national level, and most of the existing data are available in analog format, and if digital, of personal computers, implying in the hands of individuals and quite vulnerable for permanent loss. And then some similar datasets are available in more than 2 publication types, which requires filtering of redundant information when we develop national soil database or central platform to. And again, most research and survey-based soils and agronomic data are just almost officially published some years after completion of the research or the survey. So this again calls there is a need to timely avail public data to the public before it's called legacy data. And again, when we look at the national raw data sets access at the national agricultural system, it's not available neither as a standalone publication or as annex or appendix of main publication. So this implies again mother or source data are quite vulnerable for permanent loss, and it causes also the purification of effort and resource misuse in redoing similar activity. And in general, I can say research-based raw data sets documentation, access, and sharing are very weak across the national agricultural research system. And again, organizations which are not willing to share data, in most cases, fail to provide, approved institutional policies or regulations that prohibit public data sharing. So there is a need for more interaction and to create awareness, to convince those unwilling institutions to share data. And to give some concluding remarks based on our achievements or our progress. As you know, just to facilitate soils and agronomic data access and sharing, there is a need to create awareness about the soil and agronomic data sharing policy so that to promote wider access to soil and agronomic data. And there is a need also to enforce or to use legal and policy tools to enforce data sharing within and among institutions, just to avoid duplication of effort and resource misuse again. And though there is a progress has been made, to prepare standard guidelines by the coalition of the willing, but there is a need to adopt guidelines, for soils and agronomic research and survey missions that includes open data standards. Just this is to facilitate, just collection of standardized and harmonized data in the country. And there is a need also to ensure duplicated data is dealt with appropriately, when we collect data from the existing data, because some data are published available in more than 2 or 3 publications. So there is a need to filter redundant information when we just pull data from the data hosting institutions and bring on board to the central database. So there is a need also to create capacity and awareness, to collect georeference data, as I mentioned. In the national, in most of the research-based soil and agronomic data are not georeferenced properly. So there is a need to create capacity and awareness in that regard. And again, we need to ensure, or there should be enforcement mechanisms, on public institutions, just to establish digital data repositories, both for raw data and publication, and to timely avail public data to the public before the data becomes legacy data. And again, there's a need, efforts are underway, to establish a centralized national digital database platform, both at Ministry of Agriculture and the Ethiopia Ministry of Agriculture, but
We've lost you.
hello. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chipo?
Yes, go ahead.
So finally, we need to strengthen the coalition of the willing effort in collating soil and agronomic data across data holding institutions, and on already collated data, we need to employ recent developments in big data analytics and artificial intelligence. So there are efforts underway. So we need to strengthen those efforts and to generate valuable information that can support informed decision making and facilitate agricultural transformation. So with this, I wind up my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashenafi. Yes, that was I think you're doing really good work, bringing together fragmented data, facilitating better organization and management. And I think you have really very great, strong recommendations there. And he's putting these to us all as the coalition of the willing. I like what Dr. Gema was saying, that we have 100 members in the coalition of the willing. If each one, played a role, took up an activity next year, we could accomplish 100 activities relating to promotion of data sharing. So thank you, Mr. Ashenafi. Are there any questions, comments, contributions? Let's hear your voice. Just indicate if you want to speak, if you want to type in the chat, go ahead. The floor is open. There was a question, Ashenafi, from Dr. Losegard while Dr. Teklu is coming back. How much usable are the data collated? Will it not take too much time to pre-process?
Okay. About the usability of the existing data, just the scope of this mission, is not to evaluate the quality of the data, because data is data after all. If in case if it doesn't fit, for a specific purpose, it might serve other wide application. So now just we collect data as it is, and we didn't check the quality of the data. But what we plan is to prepare a standard template, to just encode or translate into a harmonized template, so that after just in that process, just we'll get a chance, to check, the quality of the data, and we'll put also we'll use also legacy or secondary data standardization and harmonization guidelines. So in that process, we'll check, how much of the quality data are really usable for a specific purpose. And usability depends on also the purpose of the application. I can say thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Teklu, are you back?
Okay, Dr. Lusagel, I think he changed his question, maybe interoperability. I think as I showed you, most of the data are available in analog format, and if digital in personal computers. So, though it doesn't, fulfill all the interoperability requirements as per the FAIR principles, but all the data has some information, though it's not structured in the metadata form, it has some information to use the data. So it fulfills very minimum usability, interoperability standards, I can say.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Ashenafi. So, as you replied, my question was not about the quality, rather how useful, how can we use those directly into our analysis? So, how far do we need to pre-process, to reorganize? Because in our first training session, I think it took us 2 days to clean and reorganize the data, and that data set was well prepared. So the one you have now is from different sources, so in different formats and so on and so forth. So we expect that there will be a need for pre-processing, which may demand its own time. Thanks. So that's where we'll take up.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. There was a question from Mr. Mitiku. He's saying there were demands for formats to submit data. What has happened?
Sorry, say it again.
Says there were demands for formats to submit data. What has happened?
Maybe I think Professor Mituku is referring to an agreement, a standardization agreement that we need to have.
Okay.
So we need to have a defined template. So whenever we collect data, we will have at least the minimum data that's available. So I think if that is the question, Prof, we are progressing well. So we are now planning to have both a analog format and the digital format of data, standardized data collection templates for the coming season. So we have some time to finalize, but before that, maybe early next year, we will present a template for discussion and approval within the coalition and beyond, so that we are sure that we have captured the basic content and also requirements.
Yes.
Can I intervene?
Yeah.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, yeah.
Yes, indeed, I brought this question because I believe, was it in May or in June or earlier on, I don't know, Ashenafi requested us to share what we have as a legacy data and other data which is in our depositories. And the question that we raised was, do we have really a format? Now we call it also a template, so that we can really share and then have in the depository. So that was what I meant, really, to reflect back on ongoing process, that we need to have this template. Without such a template, without such a format, what we already have could be already lost, So time is against us. That is to really remind Ashenafi that we need to be more tuned in terms of, of putting the priorities and collecting as much legacy data, because I know there are tremendous legacy data everywhere. So a simplified, template, a simplified form that we can put in would at least facilitate until such a time that we can have an elaborated template, So
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Yeah, well noted. Well noted. I think it will help us for our follow-up activity, because now we are in the second phase of the task force mission, which is collating data across from data hosting institutions. After coalition, so we have to convert into standard templates. So that we have to think to prepare templates, to harmonize data sourced from various sources. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Professor Mutiku. Okay, couple of more questions. It says,
Hello.
Sorry, just, yeah, who is it? Can you introduce yourself?
Hello.
I think.
Yes. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I have some questions.
Okay, please give us your name, where you're coming from.
Okay, my name is Kafialo Asaffa from Oromia Agricultural Research Institute. I want to raise some questions. Before that, I want to forward my appreciation for Mr. Ashenafi for his clear and brief presentation. But to transfer my question clearly, I want to use Amharic media. Is it possible?
Yeah. Even we should have mentioned in the beginning, we forgot, so it's possible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lord Sagad. بالبسل አሁን አሸናፊ እንዳቀረበው ይሄንን የኮአሊሽን ዊሊንግ ዓላማ ከግብ ለማድረስ ቤዚክ የሆኑ ነገሮች ብዙ ችግሮች እንዳሉ ያሳያል። እነዚህ የዳታ ጥራት የመጀመሪያ ዳታ አለመገኘት እንደዚህ ሁሉ ካሉት ሪሰርች ሲስተም ውስጥ አሁን ዳታዎች በግለሰቦች እጅ ነው ያለው። እነሱም ደግሞ አንድ ጊዜ ፐብሊሽ ካደረጉ እንትኑን ዳታውን የኦሪጂናል ዳታውን ይጥላሉ። ሁለተኛ ይሄ ኢንስቲትዩሽኖቹ ኮሌክት አድርጎ ማስቀመጥ ልምድ ወይም ደግሞ መመሪያ በአገር አቀፍ ደረጃም የለም። እንግዲህ ይሄንን የታቀደውን ግብ ለማድረስ እነዚህ የመጀመሪያ ቤዚክ መሰረታዊ ችግሮች ናቸው። ሌላው ደግሞ እነዚህ ዳታዎቹን እንድናበቡ ለማድረግ ዶክተር ፕሮፌሰር ሙትኩም እንዳነሱት ፎርማቶች ያስፈልጋሉ። በምን መልኩ መዘጋጀትና መቀመጥ እንዳለባቸው እንደዚህ ዳታዎች እነዚህ ነገሮች ለወደፊቱ ቅድሚያ እነዚህ ላይ ምን መሰራት ታቅዷል ወይስ ምን መደረግ አለባቸው የሚለው አስገዳጅ የሆኑ ነገሮችን በተቀመጡበትና ለወደፊቱ በዚህ በእንትን ላይ አንድ ዶክመንት በዘጋጅ ጥሩ ይመስለኛል። ስለዚህ እነዚህ ችግሮች በየቦታው ያሉ ችግሮች ናቸው። ሌላው በዚህ ዳታዎቹን በመሰባሰቡበት ጊዜ አሁን ራሱ በመንሰባሰቡበት ጊዜ አንድ የተወሰነ ፎርማት ሊዘጋጅ የሚችለው አሁን ለምሳሌ በኦሮሚያ ደረጃ እኛ ተጠይቀናል ዳታዎችን እንድናቀርብ። እንግዲህ ሁሉም የራሱን ሜቶዶሎጂ ይዞ ነው የሚቀርበው። ይሄንንስ እንዴት እንደተባለው አንድ ፎርማት ተዘጋጅቶ የሚመኑበት እንትን ብኖር ጥሩ ነው ላለው ይሄ ነው የኔ ሐሳብና ጥያቄ። አመሰግናለሁ።
So I think thanks Alamayo. I think bolet
Kafialo.
Sorry, Kafialo, yeah. So ባለፈው እንትን ዲስከስ እናደርግ እንደነበረው ነው ቴምፕሌቱን ለአክሰስ ዳታ ለመሰብሰብ የሚያስፈልገውን በጋይድ ላይኑ ላይ ተመስርተን አናሎግ እና ዲጂታል የሆነ እናዘጋጃለን። እሱ እስከ ሰኔ ሳይደርስ በፊት ለማድረስ ሞክራለን። ከነ ዶክተር ብሩም ጋር ተነጋግረናል። እንደውም እሱ ባለፈው ክረምት እንዲደርስለት ፈልጎ ነበር፣ አልደረሰም፣ ትንሽ ይቀረናል። ልጆችም ሌላ ቲምም አለ፣ እኛም ዴቨሎፕ ያድነው ፕሮቶታይፕ አለ፣ ሌሎችም አሉ። ስለዚህ ለሚቀጥለው ሲዝን ይኖራል። ይሄ ፕሮፌሰር ምትኩ ያነሳውና አሁን ከፍ ያለ ያልከውም ዳታ ስንጠይቅ ቴምፕሌት ቢኖረን ያልነው አይ ቲንክ የአንደኛው አፕሮቹ ሰዎች ይህን ቴምፕሌት ሙሉና አምጡ ላለማለት ፈልጎ ይመስለኛል። አሸናፊ ያላችሁን በአግሮኖሚ ያለውን ዳታውን ዝም ብለን ለማግኘት ነው መሰለኝ ያሰበው። ከዛ በኋላ እኛ ቴምፕሌቱን ባለን ቴምፕሌት ላይ ሪኦርጋናይዝ ልናደርገው፣ አለበለዚያ ግን ለአስፈላጊ ከሆነ በዚህ አይነት ቴምፕሌት ላይ ሙሉና ስጡንም የሚለውን ይቅድ መጀመሪያ ያሳየውን ቴምፕሌት አዘጋጅቶ ወይም ሰርቶ ማቅረብ ይችላል። የሌሎች መስሪያ ቤቶች አይ ቲንክ ዳታ ትሬኒንግ፣ ካፓሲቲ ዴቨሎፕመንት፣ አዌርነስ እንዲፈጠር እናደርጋለን። አሁን ጋይድላይኖቹ ሲኖሩ የመጀመሪያው ነገር የምናደርገው ቅድም ዶክተር ጥላሁንም እንዳለው አዌርነስ መፍጠር ነው። ኤክስቴንሽኖች ጋር ከዳታ ከሚሰበስቡት ጋር ከሪሰርች ሲስተሙ ጋር ዲስከስ እናደርግና ለነሱ አዌርነስ እና ካፓሲቲ ከፈጠርን አይ ቲንክ ዳታቸውን በሚሆን መልኩ የመያዝ ልምድ እየዳበረ ይመጣል። ከዛ ቀጥሎ መስሪያ ቤቶች ሲያምኑበት የራሳቸው ቴምፕሌት አዘጋጅተው ዳታቸውን በዛ መልኩ ማዋቀር መጀመራቸው አይቀርም። ያው ሲስተም ሲኖር ለምሳሌ ዳታቸውን ተዋቅሮ ወደ ሴንትራል ዳታቤዝ የማይሄድላቸው ከሆነ ከቢግ አናሊሲስ የማይጠቀሙ ይሆናሉ። ካፓሲቲ ቢልዲንግ ኤክሰርሳይዝ ሊያጡ ስለሚችሉ ወደዛኛው ሲስተም መሄድ ይቻላል። ስለዚህ እሱንም ማድረግ እንችላለን ስሩ ታይም እና ያ ነው ሐሳቤ። የእንትኑን ግን ቅድም ፕሮፌሰር ምትኩ ያለውም አሸናፊ ዌል ኖትድ ያለው ባለፈው ዓመት ስንወያይ ትዝ ይለኛል። የሆነ ቴምፕሌት እንዲኖረን እና በምንጠይቅበት ጊዜ ያንን እንደምንሄድ እናዘጋጃለን። ሌሎችም አሉ። ምን አለ ለምሳሌ ከባህር ዳር ከጠየቁት ውስጥ አንዱ ድንገት እየሄዳችሁ ወይም ደውላችሁ ዳታ አምጡ ባትሉ የዳታውን ሪኳየርመንት እና የሚፈለግበትን ጊዜ ሜንሽን ማድረግም ጥሩ ነው ብሏል። እሱም አንድ ጥሩ ኮሜንት ነው። እኔም የዛሬ ዓመት ተኩል ነው 3 ዓመት ባህር ዳር ድንገት ሄጄ ነው ቢሮአቸው አምጡ ብዬ ከየኮምፒውተራቸው የሰጡኝ እና ቀድመን ነገርናቸው እንዲሆን ያምጡ ኮሜንት ነው። አይ ቲንክ ያንንም ቴክ ኬር እናደርጋለን። ታንክስ።
ኦኬ ምናልባት እዚሁ ጋር ምናልባት ዶክተር ተክሉ ያንሳና አንድ ላይ ወይ ሜቢ ዶክተር ተክሉ
እኔ
ተክሎ አይሰማም። አይ ቲንክ ኮኔክሽኑ እንትን አይደለም መሰለኝ። ወይ ጻፈው ሪስፖንስን ተክሎ የሚሰራልህ ከሆነ እኛ እናነባዋለን።
No, I already have written.
Okay.
Yes, but I want to rephrase it. Yeah. I have a comment also regarding the template, but my question to Ashenafi was about the data percentage. I think you have got that question. And also, Ashenafi, if you mention some of the follow-up activities after we succeeded with collating of the data. By the way, Professor Mitiku and others and Kafalio and others have raised about the template, but at the moment, people have data following their own templates, and we cannot really ask them to change what they have into the template we want to. We just want to get the data the way it is, and then try to harmonize using the standard template that is prepared here by the coalition as presented by Ashenafi earlier. This is about legacy data. We don't want to force people to redo it again, but we'll do it for them. And once we are done putting into the standard format template, and if they have something missing, we can give them back. They can fill in it, but they can also ignore it. So that is to avoid extra work. But for the future, we are trying, as Lulsagar was already addressing, we want people to follow a standard approach across the board. And that standard approach is for agronomy, for all the key areas we have selected, and we have developed a standard guideline in that guideline, once it is published and disseminated, that is one of the immediate tasks that we are going to handle. People should be trained, and everybody, actually, whether it is a researcher or a surveyor, wants to follow some standard approach. And that standard approach we will provide. So for the emerging data, for the new data, we will follow the new standard, hopefully. We started to exercise already with Dr. Burru, or Ethiopian Agricultural Council Secretariat coordinated works, but we will go further to all the data generators, be it the agronomy and research or the soil surveyors, as one key task in the coming few years. So Ashenafi, please, if you address some of these issues. I mean, what would be the next task? Okay. And how did you compare data in percent?
Okay. I think now we are at the second phase of the task force mission. I can say now we are collecting data from hosting institutions as it is, because it's easy, to prepare a minimum a template, just containing minimum attributes and distributes to be filled in by the respective institutions. So we thought that's extra work, for data hosting institutions, because people have different level of understanding and a different level of also willingness, to share data, as we saw during the course of this process. So what we planned was to collect the data as it is, because some data, as you can, some are published as annex or appendix in the main along with the main publication. So for the future task ahead is just to prepare first a template, a standard template for legacy data, for legacy data, for both for survey and research-based data, legacy data sets. We'll prepare minimum data sets, with the task that we will draft and share and discuss and agree, so that we'll use that template, so that we'll convert those data from various formats and sources to that standard template, compatible to the database which is under development by the National Soil Information System, or a platform prepared at the Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research. So this is our plan. Otherwise, for the primary data, I think now as Lutsager presented and Takulu said also, the guidelines are for this purpose, just to data which is interoperable, across platforms. So for our future task will be, just translating of those data to standard templates. So about the percentage of the data, as you, Dr. Taklu, rightly explained, so sometimes it's misleading, because just we simply compare, the data, published data outputs. For instance, if you take one publication from watershed study, it might contain 1,000 data or 100 data. So sometimes it's misleading, but in this case, we compare simply the volume of the data. It's not, we didn't count, which report contains how much data sets, but we simply compare the volume of the data. So I think your point is well taken. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I think there was just one other question, which was around training. They were saying, can we give training to at least cow members, then to allow them to, can we give training to at least the cow members, then in order to increase the data compilation from each sector.
Shall I? Training to cow members, you mean?
Yeah. Someone is asking if they receive training to be able to provide you with the data that you need.
Okay, at this moment, I think we simply prepared, data request letter and to get data as it is, whether it is available in analog format or in digital format, whether it is published in the form of proceedings, progress reports, or articles in a journal. So we request, just the data as it stands, but we need mainly raw data sets, but in most cases, as I explained, raw data sets management and handling in most of the institutions is very, very, very weak. That was our very big problem, because so after publication, I don't know, they abandon the raw data sets in most cases, and sometimes people are not interested to share raw data sets. So I think we need to, especially the problem is much worse at the National Agriculture Research System. So I think we need to interact more, just to get access to raw data sets.
Maybe government if he is there, ጥያቄው ሁለት ነገር ነው ያለው። አንዱ አሸናፊ የሚሰበስብበት ዳታ ኮሌክሽን ሜተድ አለ። እሱ ዝም ብሎ ምንድነው የምናደርገው በሶይል እና አግሮኖሚ ሪሌትድ የሆነ እና የሶይል ፕሮፐርቲ ዳታ ካላችሁ ስጡን አይነት ነው። ዝም ብሎ ያለውን በሰብሰብ እኛ ማዘጋጀት ነው። ስለዚህ ትሬኒንግ የሚያስፈልገው አይነት አልመሰለንም፣ ግን ወደ ስታንዳርዱን አሟልቶ ዳታ እንዲሰበሰብ ስንዘጋጅ ትሬኒንግ እናዘጋጃለን። አንደኛው አናሎግ ነው ለሞባይል አፕሊኬሽን ከሌለ፣ ሌላኛው ዲጂታል ነው። ለዛ ትሬኒንግ እናዘጋጃለን፣ ግን ቴምፕሌቱን አብረን ኮሊሽኑ አይቶት ኦኬ አይ ቲንክ ሚኒመም የሚያሟላው የኛው አንድ ሰው አግሮኖሚክ ዳታ ሲሰበስብ ሚኒመም እነዚህን ቢኖሩት በቂ ነው የሚለውን ከሰራነው በኋላ ትሬኒንግ እናካሄዳለን። ለሴክተር ከተለያዩ ሴክተሮች ለሚሰበሰብበት ቅድም ተክሎ እንዳለው ነው የፕሮፌሰር ጥያቄ መሆን ለዛ ነው ቴምፕሌት ብትልኩልን ያለው። እኛ ያሰብነው ዝም ብሎ ሰዎችን ቴምፕሌት ሙሉትና ዳታውን አምጡት ከማለት ያላቸውን ሮ ዳታውን ተቀብለን እኛ ወደሚፈልገው ቴምፕሌት ለመቀየር አስበን ነው። ስለዚህ ያ ከሆነ ጥያቄው የሴክተራል ለመሰብሰብ እስካሁን ዳታችን ስጡን ማለት ብቻ ስለሆነ ትሬኒንግ አላዘጋጀንም፣ ግን ካመንበትና አስፈላጊ ነው ካገኘ ነው ጥያቄው ገብቶ ከሆነ I think we can prepare training for that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Okay. Yeah. So
what just I'm government. Yes, what I mean is like what Dr. Professor Mituku said, the template, the method, the approach. This was no training at this time, but at least the format, template. This is what my question.
Okay. So you've received your response then?
Yeah.
Good. I think so we are out of time now, but thank you so much for all the questions. I think Ashenafi has received quite good feedback and will be incorporating a lot of it going forward.
Yeah, before you wind up, I would like to thank those cow members, and because this data collating activity is very demanding task, and so a lot of interaction. So I think almost most of the cow members have played significant role to get access to data. So now our mission is not yet finalized, so it's an ongoing activity. So I think as usual I am hoping to collect data. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. Okay, so we've arrived at the end of today's program. Dr. Lusegard, do you have any words you want to say before we close today's proceedings?
Yeah, I think just to thank all our colleagues who presented for their work, a lot of details, good presentations, and also to thank our participants, all of them. I think we have a good number of people knowing the issues of connection and also other engagement. So we are happy with the contributions and attendees, and we hope we have also the same or more number of people tomorrow. And tomorrow will be more. We'll discuss more strategy suggestions, comments on what we should engage on in the coming season as a team. So it will be very important to meet tomorrow too. And I think that's just also to thank Chipo and other CABI colleagues for your support in using the facilitator tool, which worked very well so far. I hope there are not too many people who were not able to join because of the connection problem. There are some in and outs because of the connection, so we're happy so far. And tomorrow we will have this writing on the wall, which will be more funny and very interesting. So let's see tomorrow. And I just want to thank all of you for participating and contributing. Thanks.
Yeah, only one word. Tomorrow, the last session is very important for the coalition because it is where we discuss the future plan of the coalition, maybe during the coming 2 or 3 years. So I think I suggest or urge everyone to attend and contribute to that. Come with bright idea. We already have some framework, but please come to contribute. Thank you.